Yeah. Blackjack. Life is like a game of cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Yeah. Blackjack. To play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY, Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. Hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate your time. And if you want to be one of the first people to get notified when I drop some of this straight game, hit the bell notification so you can be one of those first people. I'm going to get right into it. This question right here comes from a young lady from Boston, Massachusetts, and she wanted to let the viewers know that she's an interracial young lady. Her father's black, her mother's white, and she wanted to know how I felt about in regards to when 2Pac actually made the statement about Quincy Jones dating white women, and what I felt about that. Her being an interracial young lady herself. And great question, but I want to start it off like this. I want to add some perspective to this, so people don't take it the wrong way. First and foremost, at this particular time, when 2Pac had made that statement about Quincy Jones, and I'm gonna get into the statement that he made, 2Pac was approximately 22 years old. And so by 2Pac being 22 years old, at that time he was still growing. And 2Pac, how he was raised, basically, the Black Panther background, black people doing for themselves and so on and so forth, trying to uplift the community and understanding the way that he was raised. I think for the most part, he was coming from that perspective. You know what I mean? So it's all about perspective. You got to understand and take all of those things into consideration, when you deal with a situation like this. And so with that being said, in 1993, 2Pac did an interview with the Source magazine. And basically 2Pac criticized Quincy Jones's relationship with him dating white women. And, that's basically an understatement as to what really happened. But I'm just saying it from that perspective. Basically in 2Pac, how he was very blunt, very honest. He basically said that all he does, meaning Quincy Jones, all he does is stick his blank in white bitches and make fucked up kids. You know what I mean? And at this particular time, like I said, 2Pac was 22 years old. Most people get it confused. Then they think that 2Pac was on death row at the time when he made that statement. No. This was a few years before he even joined death row, to show that 2Pac was still who 2Pac was, very outspoken and so on and so forth. He wasn't the first person to criticize Quincy Jones, for his relationship with white women and so on and so forth. It was a conversation, in barbershops, beauty salons. It was, it was heavy because, a lot of people felt that with the success that Quincy Jones had with Michael Jackson, Thriller, all of the things that he had done, you know what I mean? They felt like, he represented them and he represented the black community. But what people fail to realize is Quincy Jones is his own man, and he made his progress and success what it was, and he could date who he want to. So at that particular time when 2Pac made that statement, I felt as though, me personally, he was out of line. And it was disrespectful because who was he at that particular time to say who Quincy Jones could date, even though, he was 2Pac Shakur, you know what I mean? And so we're going to get into just how that manifested, to be something a little bit eye-opening for everybody if you stick with me here. So check this out. So after he had did that interview, basically Rashida, Quincy Jones's daughter, had wrote a letter to the Source magazine in regards to what 2Pac had said. And so Kidada basically telling the story, in regards to Rashida had writing the letter. Basically, she said that my sister wrote back a nasty letter to the Source, and they actually printed the letter. And so when you deal with that fact, but this is the crazy part. Not only did Rashida write a letter, but it was 2 white girls who actually wrote a letter, who lived in San Francisco, and they basically said that quote, if you don't like white people, or what about when you hung out with us? You know what I mean? And so it would point out the fact that at that time, like I said, for a lot of y'all, you weren't back, you might be a little bit younger. And like I said, for the people who understood at that time, like I understood, it might seem a bit hypocritical of 2Pac, because, on one hand, the outward appearance in making a statement about Quincy Jones, it may appear that, 2Pac was, all down for his people, and all of this, that, and the other. But then, behind the scenes, not being, being able to see 2Pac all the time and knowing what he's doing, when these white young ladies write this letter, basically say it may make him seem a bit hypocritical from that perspective. It's like, on one end, you talking about Quincy Jones dating white women, but on the other end, you behind the scenes, and you doing basically the same thing, but trying to, with this outward appearance of being, for your people and so on and so forth. And, so, and another thing about that, when 2Pac, he had that feeling, and he also explained it in the BT interview. 2Pac basically said that, I never thought that black people would harm me. He said he felt like he was there like their ambassador. It was the MTV or either the BET interview. He said he felt like they were, and he was their ambassador and he represented them, right? But it wasn't until he got shot, right, that changed his mind. You understand what I'm saying? So, you can adopt one viewpoint, and there could be something in life that happens that makes you change your mind and proves to you that your viewpoint at that particular time and what you thought is not necessarily based on truth and fact, because life is an ever progressing thing, right? So when he was shot, it kind of changed his point of view on how he saw things, right? And so basically, you move forward. Like I said, this is in 93. So you move forward. 2Pac is now on death row, right? Out of jail on bail and so on and so forth. And Kidada basically says, she said, I met 2Pac at a club. After that, he said, I want to apologize to you. I didn't mean that about you or mean that about your dad or you. I didn't see you as real human beings. Now that I see you, basically. And so Kidada kind of picked up on it, and she was like, he was all game. He was trying to get a play. And let's face it, she said, but I liked him. And she said, I didn't really tell my dad about it because I thought there'd be trouble. So despite what 2Pac had said about Quincy Jones dating white women and him having, quote unquote, making fucked up kids, 2Pac was now wanting to be involved in one of those fucked up kids. Do you understand what I'm saying? And once again, I don't call 2Pac a hypocrite. I call him immature. And he had lack of experience in living life and what it was that would impact him, because once he met Kidada, he seen how beautiful she was. Like, my God, you know what I mean? And being black, white, whatever, mixed, whatever, you have beautiful black women, you have beautiful white women, you have beautiful women of all backgrounds, but you never know who's going to be that person that affects you like that. So 2Pac was speaking ahead of the curb, if you will, before he actually hit the curb and kind of stumbled when he met Kidada. You know what I mean? And so with that being said, these are the life lessons. And when we talk about people, relationships and things of that nature, I feel like, you can date whoever you want to. If they make you happy and they do it for you, that's your business. You know what I mean? But 2Pac at that particular time, he wasn't in that frame of mind. He was in the frame of mind. So that's why I gave you some perspective in the beginning of the video to the young lady from Boston, Massachusetts, and to the viewers. So now let's move forward. So basically Kidada and 2Pac, she said basically they had started dating steadily. And one night her and 2Pac were at this spot called Jerry's Deli. And Jerry's Deli was a popular spot. Like, yo, we would hit that joint after hours. They had one off of I think San Vicente. They had one in the Valley off of Ventura Boulevard. And so, you know, this is a spot, you know, everybody would hit. It was popping after the clubs. You know, you go get a late night meal and things like that. So she basically said that they was at Jerry's Deli in LA, and these two hands slammed down on 2Pac's shoulders from behind. And she said they both jumped up. And there was her father standing there. And basically Quincy Jones said to 2Pac, he said that I need to kick it with you for a minute. You know what I mean? And this was the she said basically this was the first time they had met. So basically 2Pac had made that statement about Quincy Jones, and he had never met the man. You understand what I'm saying? So, you know, when you think about that, you got to think about, once again, when I say 2Pac was immature at that particular time, you never even met the man, but yet you made a statement about who he date as if you knew him personally, but you really didn't, right? And so basically, so he took him and 2Pac went and sat in the booth, and they sat there for a long while, basically, from Kadada's standpoint, and they stood up, they hugged. And when it was over, you know, they got along fine from there on in. 2Pac was excited that Quincy Jones now wanted to work with him. And like I told y'all before, there was a deal on the table for $80 million over at Warner Brothers. It was a multimedia deal. And Quincy Jones was basically behind that happening after 2Pac was going to leave Death Row. You know what I mean? Or leave what appeared to him being under Death Row. But they had an $80 million deal, basically, and Quincy Jones was responsible, you know, kind of for negotiating that. And so what I want to say to you is this. Like I said, at the end of the day, and to the young lady who asked the question, you know, me personally, never really judge a book by its cover. You know what I mean? And so when you deal with the aspect of 2Pac saying what he said, I just think he was immature at that particular time, and basically taking what he understood to be, you know, his life, and thinking that everybody's supposed to think the way that he thought in regards to, you know, dating and you know, black women versus white women versus whatever. But see now, and I'm going to show you another way in which 2Pac was immature. Didn't 2Pac date Madonna? Yeah. And so, but true, 2Pac then once again was conflicted in dating Madonna, right? And so think about it now. 2Pac had dated Madonna, and this is another thing that people don't really pay attention to. 2Pac had dated Madonna before he went to prison. Get it? So when at the same time 2Pac was, you know, saying this about Quincy Jones, right? 2Pac had dated Madonna. You know, these are facts. You know what I mean? And like I said, at the end of the day, you know, so I don't know if he was, you know, gaslighting, trying to say something that was controversial, whatever he was trying to do. But at the same time, you come to understand these facts later, right? Remember, in the letter that 2Pac wrote to Madonna, he basically said that him being a black guy, dating an older white woman, wouldn't look good for his career. So he wasn't even basically worried about how he naturally felt himself. He was worried more about how people would view him. That was the pressure that he basically was under. So he kind of lifted that veil of it just being a perspective thing in that letter, which we weren't supposed to see, to basically saying that, oh, you know what, you know, it wouldn't appear, you know, good to my fans and so on and so forth. And then he basically, in the letter, he basically said that in prison, how he had grew and understand it to be different after him being shot and what had happened to him. And he was ready to fully embrace who Madonna was, right? And his relationship with her. Amazing. So you riding for your people, or think you standing up for something noble, right? Not because you personally standing up for it, but because of how you think people who supported you, or the people who you think supported you, how they felt about you, and not really how you should be living your life. So you take that and you go and you know, cross that with Quincy Jones. I think Quincy Jones understood something that Tupac didn't at that time. You know what I mean? Being an older gentleman and being in the music business and since the 60s is that you got to live your own life. And I think Tupac, once again, remember I said that he was immature. As he started to grow, as he started to evolve, he kind of saw that himself. Like, yo, I've been trying to basically live up to the standards of how people saw me instead of living up to the standards of what was going to make me happy. You know what I mean? So that's basically what I gather from that. And so, you know, to the young lady from Boston, Massachusetts, I think it's thank you for the question. I appreciate that. But I think that, you know, a lot of us, you know, fall into that, that trap of, you know, people feeling a certain kind of way about certain things. And like I said, you just never know who's going to be a blessing and a lesson in your life. You don't know that. You know what I mean? They might be white, they might be black, they might be Asian, they might be Mexican, they might be anything, but you just never know who God's going to send you to be a blessing in your life and a lesson in your life. You don't know these things. And so I think, like I said, once again, Tupac began to realize that as time went on. And like I said, when him and Quincy Jones had met and sat down and talked, you know, this Madonna letter and all of that stuff had been written. And I think him getting with Kadada was him finally basically saying to himself, like, yo, and seeing her was like, you know what? You know, I was wrong. You know, I was wrong about what I said and how I felt. And, you know, and him and Quincy sitting down and, you know, basically, you know, hashing it out. I'm sure Pac probably apologized to him too. And because he was that kind of guy. And they moved on. Your boy DELRAY, straight gang.